Parents gift house plus 30K. What would you do? What if your parents offered you their house for basically nothing? Like, what if they handed you the keys, threw in 30 grand cash, and paid all your closing costs too? Sounds like a dream come true, right? Well, that's exactly what's happening to one of our viewers right now. And honestly, it's both amazing and terrifying at the same time. So, picture this. You're 20 years old, fresh out of the nest, and your parents are ready to move to their retirement home. They come to you with this incredible offer. They'll sell you the family home for 220,000 grand, which is literally market value, but here's the kicker. They're going to gift you $30,000 in equity, cover all your closing costs, and leave you pretty much everything in the house except their personal stuff. I mean, who does that? That's parents who are either incredibly generous or secretly trying to get rid of you, but probably both. Now, most people would look at this deal and immediately start planning their housewarming party, right? I mean, 30 grand is 30 grand, and getting a house basically handed to you, that's the kind of thing that makes Instagram posts and family dinner conversations for years to come. But here's where it gets real. Our 20-year-old hero here is making about 20 bucks an hour, which sounds decent until you do the math on what that actually means for monthly bills. Let me paint you a picture of what this looks like in real life. So, you've got this beautiful house, probably worth way more than what your parents are selling it to you for, and you're thinking, man, I'm set for life. But then reality hits like a freight train when you learn that your monthly payment, including escrow and everything else, is going to be about $1,500. That's $1,500 every single month coming out of your checking account like clockwork, whether you want it to or not. And here's the part that makes me want to grab this kid and shake some sense into him. That $1,500 payment represents about 50% of his net income. Let that sink in for a second. Half of everything he takes home every month is going straight to the bank for his house. That means for everything else, food, gas, utilities, entertainment, savings, emergency funds, dating, basically living life, he's working with the other 50%. That's not just tight, that's basically a financial quicksand waiting to happen. But here's what's really interesting about this whole situation. He's not some kid fresh out of high school with a no plan. He actually has his stuff pretty together. He's got about $30,000 sitting in a high-yield savings account that he's planning to use as an emergency fund, which is actually really smart. He knows that having that cushion is going to be crucial if things go sideways. He's also aware that he's going to have to make some serious sacrifices. He literally mentions being willing to eat ramen every day for the next few years until his income improves. That kind of dedication is admirable, but it's also a little bit concerning because we're talking about basic quality of life here. The thing that really gets me about this story is how it perfectly illustrates the gap between opportunity and readiness. Your parents are handing you what could be a life-changing opportunity on a silver platter, but you're not quite in the position to handle it yet. It's like being given the keys to a Ferrari when you've only driven a Honda Civic your whole life. The car is amazing, but you might not be ready for the responsibility that comes with it. All right, let's break down the actual numbers here because this is where it gets real, and I want you to really understand what we're dealing with. So our 20-year-old friend is making $20 an hour, and I know what you're thinking, that's actually pretty good money for someone just starting out. And you're absolutely right, 20 bucks an hour is solid. But here's the thing we need to talk about. How many hours is he actually working? Let's do some quick math. If he's working a standard 40-hour week, that's $800 a week before taxes. Times 52 weeks in a year, that's $41,600 annually. That's his gross income, the money that gets deposited into his bank account before the government takes their cut and before his employer takes their cut for benefits and all that other stuff. But here's where it gets interesting. That's gross income, not take-home pay. After taxes, insurance, Social Security, Medicare, and all those other deductions that mysteriously disappear from your paycheck every 2 weeks, he's probably taking home somewhere around $30K per year. That's a rough estimate, but it's in the ballpark. So now we're talking about $1,500 a month for his house payment, which is half of his take-home pay. That means he's got the other $1,500 to cover literally everything else for the entire month. Think about everything you need to live for a month. Food, and I'm not talking about just surviving, I'm talking about actually eating nutritious meals that keep you healthy and energized for work. Transportation, gas money, car payments, maintenance, insurance, parking if you live in a city, utilities, electricity, water, internet, phone, maybe even cable if you're one of those people. Personal care items, soap, shampoo, toothpaste, all that stuff that you never think about until you run out. Clothing, and not just the bare minimum, but professional clothes for work and casual clothes for your personal time. Then there's the fun stuff, entertainment, dining out, maybe going to a movie or concert once in a while. Social activities, meeting friends for coffee, going to parties, contributing to group gifts or activities. And let's not forget about building some kind of social life outside of work, because isolation is real and it can mess with your mental health in ways you don't even realize. But here's the real kicker: savings. We mentioned he has $30,000 in a high-yield savings account, which is fantastic, but that's probably his entire life savings at this point. What happens when that emergency fund gets used up? What about retirement savings? What about saving for other goals? Maybe you want to renovate the house your parents gave you, or maybe you want to take a vacation or get married someday and have a wedding. All of these things require money, and if you're already spending 50% of your income on housing, where is that money supposed to come from? And let's talk about the $1,500 house payment for a second. That's not just principal and interest on the loan. That includes property taxes, homeowner's insurance, and probably PMI, since he's only putting 20% down. Those costs can actually increase over time. Property taxes go up, insurance premiums change, and maintenance costs for a house are real. The average homeowner spends about 1 to 3% of their home's value annually on maintenance and repairs. For a $220,000 house, that's $2,200 to $6,600 a year just to keep the place in decent shape. That's another $200 a month that's not accounted for in his $1,500 payment, but it's definitely coming out of the other $1,500 he has for everything else. So now we're talking about $1,300 a month for food, transportation, utilities, clothing, entertainment, and everything else that makes life livable. That's doable, but it's not comfortable, and comfort matters when you're trying to build a life. The stress of constantly worrying about money affects everything: your sleep, your relationships, your job performance, your mental health. And when you're young and just starting your career, the last thing you want is the constant pressure of financial stress holding you back from taking advantage of opportunities that could accelerate your career growth. Okay, so now let's really dig into why this situation feels impossible. And I want you to understand that this isn't just about being dramatic or not wanting to adult. This is about basic financial principles that have been tested and proven over decades. When your housing costs exceed 30% of your gross income, financial experts start getting nervous. When they hit 50% of your take-home pay, red flags start flying everywhere like it's the 4th of July. The fundamental problem here is something called housing burden, and it's a real thing that financial advisors talk about constantly. The general rule of thumb is that your housing cost should be no more than 25 to 30% of your gross monthly income. Some people push it to 35% if they're in expensive areas, but 50%? That's in dangerous territory, my friends. That's the kind of burden that can derail financial goals, limit opportunities, and create stress that affects every aspect of your life. Let me paint you a realistic picture of what a month might actually look like for our 20-year-old hero. He gets his paycheck, and immediately half of it goes to his house payment. That's done, non-negotiable. Then he's got to budget the remaining half for literally everything else. Groceries for the month, let's say $300 if he's really careful and shops smart. Gas and transportation costs, maybe $200 depending on his commute and how much he drives. Utilities, electricity, water, internet, phone, that's probably another $200, maybe more if he likes his air conditioning or heating running. That's $700 right there, and he's already down to $600 for the rest of the month. $600 for clothing, personal care items, entertainment, dining out, gifts, unexpected expenses, and savings. And here's where reality really hits. Unexpected expenses always happen. Your car needs a new tire, your phone breaks, you get sick and need medical care, or your boss suddenly asks you to attend a conference that requires travel. These things don't care about your budget, and they certainly don't care that 50% of your income is already committed to your house. The psychological impact of this kind of financial pressure cannot be understated. When you're constantly worried about money, it affects your decision-making abilities, your stress levels, and your overall quality of life. Studies have shown that financial stress is one of the leading causes of anxiety and depression in young adults, and it's also a major contributor to relationship problems. When you're worried about every purchase, every decision becomes loaded with anxiety about whether you can afford it. But here's what really makes this situation challenging. It's not just about the money, it's about timing and life stage. At 20 years old, you're supposed to be exploring opportunities, taking calculated risks, building your career, and establishing your independence. You're not supposed to be house poor before you've even really started your adult life. This kind of financial commitment at such a young age can actually limit your career options in ways that might surprise you. Think about it. What if you get offered a job that pays more but requires you to relocate? What if you want to go back to school for additional training or education? What if you meet someone and want to get married but they have their own financial obligations? These are the kinds of life decisions that people in their 20s should be considering. But when you're tied down with a massive housing payment, your options become severely limited. The other thing that concerns me is the concept of opportunity cost. By taking on this house payment that consumes 50% of his income, he's potentially missing out on other wealth-building opportunities. That money could be invested in stocks, bonds, retirement accounts, or other ventures that could compound over time and build real wealth. Instead, it's going to pay off a house that, while valuable, isn't really an investment in the traditional sense because he's going to live in it. There's also the issue of lifestyle inflation. Once you get used to living in a house, making house payments, and having that lifestyle, it becomes very difficult to scale back if you need to. What happens if he loses his job or faces some other financial setback? He can't exactly move back in with his parents after taking ownership of their house, and selling it might not be easy or quick enough to solve his immediate problems. The math here is pretty clear. While the opportunity is incredible and the generosity of his parents is absolutely amazing, the financial reality doesn't align with sustainable long-term success. This isn't about being ungrateful or not appreciating what his parents are offering. It's about understanding that sometimes the most loving thing his parents could do is help him find a solution that works for his current financial situation, rather than setting him up for potential struggle. All right, so we've established that this situation is financially challenging, but here's the good news. There are actually several practical solutions that could make this work without completely destroying our young friend's quality of life. The key is thinking creatively and having honest conversations with his parents about what's really possible right now. Let's start with some immediate actions that could make this more manageable. First, and most importantly, he needs to have a serious conversation with his parents about timing. Is there any flexibility on when they need to sell and move? If they could wait 6 months to a year, that would give him time to increase his income, save more money, and potentially qualify for better loan terms. He could use that time to pick up additional shifts, seek promotions, or even look for higher paying opportunities in his field. Another immediate action is to explore the roommate situation. Since his parents are leaving him pretty much everything in the house, there's probably space for roommates. He could rent out a bedroom or two to trusted friends, or even look into house hacking, where he lives in part of the house and rents out the rest. A good roommate could easily contribute $500 to $800 a month toward the mortgage, which would immediately reduce his housing burden from 50% to 30% of his income. That's a game changer, my friends. He should also look into whether his parents would be willing to carry part of the loan themselves. This is called seller financing, and it's more common than you might think. His parents could essentially act as the bank, holding the second mortgage, or carrying part of the purchase price. This could reduce his monthly payments significantly while still allowing them to eventually get their money back, plus interest. It's a win-win that keeps everyone happy. Now, let's talk about medium-term strategies that could really transform this situation. One of the most powerful approaches is to increase his income through career development. At 20 years old, he's got incredible potential for growth, especially if he's in a field with advancement opportunities. He should be talking to his supervisor about overtime opportunities, additional certifications, or training programs that can lead to promotions. Many employers offer tuition reimbursement for job-related education, which could accelerate his career growth. He could also consider developing side hustles or freelance work that aligns with his skills. If he's tech-savvy, there are countless opportunities for web development, digital marketing, or consulting work. If he's good with his hands, there might be opportunities in home repair or maintenance. The key is finding something that pays well enough to make a meaningful difference in his monthly cash flow without completely burning him out. Another medium-term strategy is to refinance the loan once he's established more equity and improved his credit score. In a few years, with a better income and payment history, he could potentially refinance at a lower interest rate, which would reduce his monthly payments. He could also explore making additional principal payments when possible to build equity faster and improve his loan-to-value ratio. Long-term planning is where this situation could actually become incredibly advantageous. While the immediate burden is heavy, owning a home at such a young age puts him decades ahead of his peers financially. He should be thinking of this as building equity for his future. Every payment he makes is building wealth, and if the housing market continues to appreciate, he could end up sitting on a significant asset that provides financial security for decades to come. He should also be aggressively contributing to retirement accounts, even if it's just small amounts initially. The power of compound interest means that starting early, even with small amounts, can result in substantial wealth over time. A Roth IRA would be particularly beneficial since he's in a lower tax bracket now and will likely be in the higher one later. Another long-term strategy is to view this house as an investment property when he's ready to move. He could rent it out and use the rental income to help fund his next home purchase, or he could use the equity to invest in additional properties. Real estate can be an incredibly powerful wealth-building tool when approached strategically. The key is to think of this not as a burden, but as a foundation. This house could be the launching pad for his entire financial future, but only if he manages it wisely and doesn't let the short-term challenges derail his long-term goals. It's about making smart decisions now that set him up for success later. So here's where we bring it all together and talk about what a realistic path forward actually looks like. The truth is, the situation isn't impossible, but it does require some careful planning, honest conversations, and probably some creative problem solving. The key is finding the approach that works for everyone involved while setting our 20-year-old friend up for long-term success rather than short-term struggle. Let me paint you a picture of what a realistic timeline might look like. Instead of jumping into home ownership immediately, what if he took 6 to 12 months to prepare? During that time, he could focus on increasing his income through additional training, certifications, or even a job change if better opportunities exist. He could also save up a larger down payment, which would reduce his monthly payments and potentially eliminate the need for private mortgage insurance. During this preparation period, he could continue living with roommates or in more affordable housing while his parents perhaps rent their current home or stay in it a bit longer. This gives everyone time to adjust and ensures that when he does take ownership, he's in a much stronger financial position. 6 months of focused effort could easily increase his income by 20 to 30%, which would dramatically improve his housing payment ratio. But let's say timing is critical and his parents really do need to move soon. In that case, the roommate strategy becomes absolutely essential. He should start networking immediately to find reliable, responsible roommates who could move in right away. He could even offer slightly below market rent to quality tenants in exchange for longer lease commitments. Having one good roommate could reduce his housing burden enough to make this manageable without sacrificing his quality of life completely. Another realistic approach is to negotiate terms with his parents that make the transition smoother. What if they agree to rent back part of the house for a year or two? This would give him rental income while his parents maintain some connection to the home during their transition. It's a creative solution that benefits everyone and could make the difference between financial stress and financial stability. He should also be realistic about his lifestyle expectations for the first few years. Yes, eating ramen occasionally might be necessary, but he doesn't have to live like a college student forever. He could focus on cooking at home more often, finding free or low-cost entertainment options, and being strategic about his spending. The key is making conscious choices rather than feeling deprived. Building an emergency fund beyond that initial $30,000 is also crucial. While $30,000 is excellent for someone his age, he should aim to build it up to 6 months of expenses, which in his case would be closer to $50,000. This gives him a real safety net that can handle unexpected expenses without derailing his financial progress. From a career perspective, he should be thinking strategically about his next few years. What skills can he develop that will increase his earning potential? What certifications or training programs are available that could accelerate his career growth? He should be networking within his industry, seeking mentorship opportunities, and positioning himself for promotions or better job opportunities. The mental and emotional aspects of this transition are just as important as the financial ones. He should be prepared for the responsibility that comes with home ownership, maintenance, repairs, yard work, and all the other tasks that come with owning a home. These aren't just expenses, they're time commitments that need to be factored into his overall planning. Looking at the bigger picture, this opportunity could actually set him up for incredible financial success if he handles it wisely. By age 30, while his peers are still renting and building credit, he could be sitting on significant equity, have an excellent credit history, and potentially be ready to purchase additional properties or make other major investments. The key is approaching this with patience and strategic thinking rather than rushing into something that could create unnecessary stress. His parents' generosity is incredible, but true generosity sometimes means helping him find the path that works best for his current situation, rather than what seems best in the moment. This is really about building a foundation for long-term success, not just solving an immediate housing need. With the right approach, support system, and planning, this could be the best financial decision he ever makes. It's going to require some sacrifice and careful management in the short term, but the potential rewards are absolutely worth it. The most important thing is that he doesn't feel pressured to make this decision alone. He should be talking to financial advisors, real estate professionals, and other trusted adults who can help him navigate this complex situation. He should also maintain open communication with his parents about what's realistic and sustainable for his current financial situation. This isn't just about a house. It's about building a life, creating financial security, and setting himself up for long-term success. With the right approach, support system, and planning, he can absolutely make this work while maintaining his quality of life and continuing to grow both personally and professionally. Please let us know if you agree or disagree with our recommendations in the comments section. For more authentic anonymous stories like this, please like, subscribe, and share.